Good evening. Welcome to Have I Got News For You? I'm Stephen Mangan, and after a week when nothing's gone right for him, Nick Clegg visits a Scottish shipyard and tries his hand at welding. In Soho, an enthusiastic trainee cameraman begins work on the set of Lesbian Nurses 3. And after negotiating a substantial pay rise, Nick Robinson taunts Hugh Edwards by comparing their salaries live on air. On Ian's team is a comedian from Glasgow who is only 24, or as it's known in Glasgow, middle-aged. Please welcome Kevin Bridges. And with Paul Merton tonight is a former Defence Secretary who acquired a nickname based on an offensive word he was thought to have said in the House of Commons. He denied he said it, the word was removed from Hansard, and the matter is now completely forgotten. Please welcome Bollocks Bob Ainsworth. And we start with the biggest stories of the week. Ian and Kevin, take a look at this.
It's a mobile phone. Elderly one, someone's hacking into it. That's Andy Coulson, he's not listening. Oh, no. He doesn't know anything about it. Murdoch, he doesn't know anything about it. Oh, he's apologised, so maybe he did. Who's that? Sienna Miller. And that isn't Sienna Miller. They've apologised.
They have apologised, indeed. Why have they decided to apologise now?
They've been phone hacking people for years, and they said they weren't. They said it was the result of a lone hacker. And the editor of the News of the World at the time said he had no idea what was going on. I mean, why would he? He's editing the paper. I can tell you, I've no idea what happens at all at Private Eye. No idea.
That is self-evident.
Yeah.
You only have to read the issue. But Mr. Coulson has resigned twice now for something he didn't do.
Yeah. Which is very noble of him. He may even go to jail for something he didn't do.
Yeah.
And I think for celebrities as well, I think if you don't want your voicemails getting hacked, answer your phone.
Yeah. Simple enough.
Yeah. That would be good if they hacked ordinary people, guys like me, my phone.
Have you not been hacked?
I'd like to see the headlines. Scottish comedian tells mother he won't be home for tea as he's going to KFC for a Godfather meal. Snooker cancelled, rearranged next Tuesday.
Have you been hacked, Bob?
Not that I'm aware of. Great shame, really.
Have you said anything interesting on the phone?
Not that I'm prepared to admit to.
Oh, come on. You're amongst friends. We won't tell anybody.
They're only apologising for 2 years.
Right.
Only for the time Andy Coulson was editor, not for the time, say, Rebecca Wade was editor.
Yes. What has Rebecca Wade admitted to?
Paying the police for stories.
Yes.
She did that at a parliamentary committee looking into it, and she just said, oh, we paid the police for stories, and then Andy Coulson sitting next to her to say, what's that up there? Oh, la, 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 la.
And then they issued a clarification.
Yes.
Saying when she said they'd paid for police for stories, they meant they hadn't.
Yeah.
Hacking celebrities, everything in their lives is on Twitter these days. Anyway,
Yeah.
Bob, you're on Twitter, aren't you? I've done a bit of
This
research.
afternoon, yeah.
What were you twittering?
I was seeking advice about this programme.
Who
Got
from?
some. Oh, anybody. Anybody who'd give me any.
Did they give
all
you-
said they all said I was mad to come on, and that you would murder me.
Well, that's a bit strong.
The little. They said the
You
little.
might never walk straight again, you know what I mean?
A bit of that, but, you know...
One of them said the little slaphead at the end will murder you.
Was this Piers Morgan you were talking to? The thinking man's amoeba.
What you said, Bob, I actually wrote it. You said, I've agreed to do Have I Got News For You. Am I mad? Time will tell. All advice on how to survive will be gratefully received. That was 3 hours ago. When did you get booked for this, Bob? It's pretty short notice. And one of the replies from the chief political editor of the Daily Express said, don't do it, you'll look like a dick.
So, how did News International senior executive James Murdoch boast about the way the company was handling the scandal only a week ago?
Well, he said that they've contained the scandal and it's now in a box.
Yeah.
Yes, he said, we were really able to put this problem in a box marked fuck up. What, according to The Observer, did Rupert Murdoch do when Gordon Brown became PM and initiated an investigation into the phone hacking?
He phoned up number 10.
Asked them to go easy.
Yeah, but they knew that because they were just checking.
The source told them Murdoch got in touch with a good friend who then got in touch with Brown. The intention was to get him to cool things down. Their source was an ex-minister who wants to remain anonymous.
Do you think, though, that Murdoch could just ring up number 10 during your time there and sort things out? Do you think he had that much access?
My time there.
Well, you were in the cabinet. I know it's easy to forget.
He's thinking about the slaphead remark from earlier.
I mean, did he have that sort of access? Did you lot jump when Murdoch called?
Do you think that number 10 gives all of their secrets to all of their ministers?
Well, you were chief whip at one point, then you were defence secretary. You can't say you didn't know anything.
Deputy.
Deputy chief whip. Sorry, I really over-exaggerated your So how about an answer, then?
I know nothing.
You know nothing? Is that why you were in the cabinet?
So what did you think of him then?
What, Gordon?
Yeah, he was all right, wasn't he?
He was the Prime Minister.
Yeah. And you can't have a more ringing endorsement than that. What does he do these days, since he's no longer on the telly? What does he do?
He's down here, he's pressing some buttons for me. You're right, Gordon.
According to one newspaper, he's going to run
some water.
IMF.
He's down there.
In a TV programme. So, which investigative journalist really blew the whole story apart? Famous actor?
Oh, you mean Hugh Grant?
What did he do?
He wired himself up. And he went to talk to an old...
We had 4 coffees. What are you talking about?
He put a wire on himself.
Oh, yes.
And went to interview an old News of the World journalist. He turned the tables. He tapped, basically, someone else's conversation. And this old News of the World lag sat there saying, yeah, we taped everyone, Rebecca Wade did it, we were at it all the time. Murder victims, yeah, we tapped their families. Charming lot.
Hugh Grant secretly taped former News of the World journalist Paul McMullen in the pub he now runs near Dover. McMullen was the original whistleblower who gave details of phone hacking to the press. Here he is. He said, and this was printed in the New Statesman, Cameron must have known about it. That's the bigger scandal. Rebecca Wade and Cameron are big mates. They go riding together. Cameron is very much in debt to Rebecca for helping him not quite win the election. Hugh pushed his questioning a bit further. He said, so everyone knew, I mean, would Rebecca Wade have known all this stuff was going on? McMullen, good question. You're not taping, are you? Hugh, slightly shrill voice, no. So why do you think McMullen thought Rupert Murdoch knew nothing about the phone hacking?
Because he's not a fool. He wants to work again sometime.
McMullen said he's quite puritanical. Sorry to talk about Divine Brown, but when that came out, Murdoch was furious. What are you putting that on the front page for? You're bringing down the tone of our paper. Hugh, well, it's also because it was his film I was about to appear in. It was a Fox film. McMullen. Oh, I see.
What was the movie? The Fox movie?
I don't know.
Mickey Blue Eyes.
Oh, Mickey Blue Eyes.
Right.
Yeah, that would have ruined that launch, wouldn't it? Do you know why McMullen originally decided to blow the whistle on the phone hacking? Did he have a pang of conscience?
No.
No, he told Hugh Grant, a friend of mine at The Guardian kept hassling. So I said, well, if you put the name of my pub, The Castle, on the front page of The Guardian, I'll do anything you like. Although we should point out it's a really shit pub.
You don't know his pub was rubbish.
No, but it was shit.
It was just a joke. This is the phone hacking scandal which saw News of the World journalists intercept the voicemails of some of Britain's best-loved celebrities, and Andy Gray. It's been claimed that Rupert Murdoch lent on Gordon Brown to defuse the phone hacking row. A spokesman for the News of the World said, "This is total rubbish." He then put down the newspaper and denied the claim. As the scandal unravels, Prime Minister Cameron is said to be unsure of what his next move should be, as Rupert Murdoch hasn't told him yet. The editor of Private Eye has also been embroiled in the scandal, as evidence has come to light that News of the World journalists have been intercepting his messenger pigeon. Paul and Bob, here's yours.
Right, She's shocked. She seems to be shocked. Shocked by the camera work, I think. Is her mouth stuck in that sort of open position? That's rather unfortunate for her.
That is right. This is the story of Holly Thompson, who appeared on the BBC Three programme Bizarre ER this week. During her politics A-level class, she was so bored, she gave a big yawn and actually dislocated her jaw. Holly, who studied at Northampton School for Girls, said, "I was so shocked. My expression probably said it all." How did the school nurse attempt to free Holly's jaw?
Did it involve two horses and a tractor?
Nearly.
Nearly?
No, it didn't.
No.
According to the Daily Mail, the nurse first tried putting a hot water bottle under Holly's chin, and then, when that didn't work, she tried using ice packs. I personally would have continued to check every single temperature in between those two extremes, but she more wisely decided to go to casualty. So, do we know what did the trick in the end?
Did they show her something interesting politically?
Like Bob? In the end, 26 wooden splints were inserted into Holly's mouth, stretching it wider and wider and wider until it clicked back into place. Yes.
That's what she gets for not paying attention in politics.
Quite right.
How far back can a human mouth go?
I don't know. Would we like to find out? Gordon? Well, Holly may find politics boring, but I beg to differ as I unveil my banana skin of news. All four of these have slipped up this week, but how? Here's the first one.
OK. Nick Clegg. Well, he's a difficult man to trust, isn't he? Because there's some letters of his name aren't actually needed to pronounce his name. For example, if you take the C off Nick Clegg, it's still Nick Clegg. You could lose the last G, that doesn't make any difference, and you could lose the K. There are 3 letters in his name which he doesn't need. And we're wasting valuable tongue time pronouncing letters that you can't even hear.
Cuts should start there, shouldn't they?
Exactly. Just cut his own name for a start.
What's his gaff this week?
What's his gaff?
I expect you lot were hot onto it.
He makes gaffes on such a regular basis, it's very difficult. They're like buses coming along, aren't they? You can't...
OK, name 3.
Oh, well, I mean, the big one was the student fees promise that he made so blatantly and then broke.
I don't think that's this
really,
week, though, Bob, is
he's
it?
not, yeah, well, but he's never really recovered from it, has he?
No, no. Any others? Anything?
No?
I mean, I'm just interested. You're the MP, after all.
Ian, you got an idea?
No, not a
No?
clue.
Does the name Gillian Duffy?
Yeah, of
ring
course
bells?
I know. This is Gillian Duffy, the woman who did for Gordon Brown.
That's right.
She's the Susan Boyle of British politics.
This is the reappearance of Gillian Duffy, the woman described as bigoted by Gordon Brown during the election campaign. Remember when she was told what he'd said?
You're joking.
That reminds you of anyone at all?
I would get the hot water bottle in the ice bucket in case of jaw. Oh, people said he got unlucky because the mic stayed on. I thought he'd get lucky that it cut out when it did. I bet he said much worse. Just an old bigot. A good ride, that's what she needed. I bet he said something career-threatening.
Yeah, Gillian Duffy collared Nick Clegg this week when he was visiting her hometown of Rochdale. How well did that conversation go as far as Nick Clegg was concerned? Well, let's see if the headlines give us any indication of how well he performed. Brown bigot duffs up Clegg. Duffed up, Clegg's double duffing. Although, to be fair, that last one doesn't actually make any sense.
She asked Nick Clegg if he can look at her in the eye and tell her that he's happy.
He got ambushed. The local Labour MP thought, we'll wheel out Gillian again and see if she can end another career. But Clegg doesn't really need a lot of help.
Yes, earlier on in the day, he'd given an interview on Sky News in which he'd said this.
£400 million a day, that's enough to build a primary school in Liverpool every 20 minutes.
And then, in his personal one-to-one chat with Gillian Duffy, given the chance to put the media speak to one side and give a straight answer, he said this.
Do you know how much money we're borrowing every single day?
Well,
it's
coming out in the press.
It's £400 million
Yes.
every single day of every week. That's enough to build a primary school here in Rochdale every 20 minutes.
I wonder what Nick Clegg would do if he won the lottery. I think he'd build a primary school in Liverpool every 20 minutes.
They don't last very long, the primary schools in Liverpool, do they?
No, they don't. That's a lot of primary schools.
Every 20 minutes. I mean, get the ringleaders, sort them out, you know?
What other signs are there that Nick Clegg is becoming toxic?
A lot of local councils in the election haven't put him on their leaflets.
Not even in Sheffield, I think.
Not even in Sheffield, in his own constituency.
His own city.
Yes, he has.
Terrible fate awaits him, Bob. He could be sitting where you are.
Yes, he's been airbrushed out of election leaflets in the run-up to May the 5th, as the leader of the Liberal Democrats in Liverpool has told him, please pull out of the coalition before we disappear into the annals of history. Bob, what's it like in the annals of history? Let's return to my banana skin of news.
David Cameron?
Has he gaffed this week?
Yes, he said that the Oxford intake only had one black guy or woman going in last year, and in fact there's 24. And so Oxford said that David Cameron didn't know what he was talking about. David Cameron said Oxford didn't know what he was talking about. So somewhere amidst all that is the answer.
Yes, here he is.
I saw figures the other day that showed that only one black person went to Oxford last year. I think that's disgraceful.
Oxford needs more waiters than that.
Oxford University claimed this figure was inaccurate and misleading, the one figure.
Which he could have found out.
Yes.
I mean, I went and had a look at the website where it breaks down the figures. I mean, I know, again, you can't expect the Prime Minister to waste his valuable time getting it right. But it's all there, it's broken down. There's one Afro-Caribbean in the 2009 figures, but actually the ethnic minority intake to Oxford is above what you would expect for the number of people there. So it isn't Oxford being disgraceful. What he should look at is schools, education and lack of opportunity. There's one Afro-Caribbean boy getting into Oxford. Why is that? Is that the fault of racist admissions tutors, or could it be something to do with the 18 years previous to that interview? Sorry about that.
What is it they teach you at Oxford that's so good? Because then I don't have to bother going then.
Who paid for your education?
The taxpayer.
Yes.
And then I pay my taxes, Bob, and that funds the next generation.
Right.
Or it's meant to, except you introduced tuition fees, remember?
I also left school and started paying taxes so I could pay for your education so that you could start behaving like a stuck-up, well-educated...
I didn't go to university, I worked for the News of the World. I haven't paid any tax for 25 years.
Good, right. So, there's been another gaffe involving immigration. David Cameron and Vince Cable.
I think this was on the news just before we came in.
Yes.
Only half registered it. Expect Bob's got the detail.
He was complaining about his language, wasn't he? He was saying that he was being inflammatory with the language that he was using.
Yeah.
Yes, this is Cameron's speech on immigration that's angered Lib Dem Vince Cable. So is this the beginning of the end for the coalition?
Hope so.
You could be back, Bob. I wouldn't put money on it, but...
You'd then be Bounce Back Bob instead of Bollocks Bob. How has David Cameron proved he's just like an ordinary person?
They took a budget flight on holiday, didn't they? Flew to somewhere or other.
They went Ryanair.
And they stayed in a three-star bed and breakfast for his wife's 40th birthday. Just ask her for a divorce, David.
It may have had something to do with it, the PR approach. A nice, friendly picture that shows, you know, just like all of us is going on holiday.
Except the picture showed an empty departure lounge. And when I fly Ryanair or EasyJet, it's not empty.
You're a very popular man, Ian.
Yeah.
Yes, David Cameron flew Ryanair on a budget break to Spain with his wife Samantha. Fellow passenger Beckett Fish spotted the Camerons waiting for their flight and had this amusing anecdote to share with the Mail on Sunday.
Yeah.
I noticed that they had very nice hand luggage, but the bags looked a bit big, and I thought they'll be lucky to get that through the hand luggage check. But clearly they did. Right, back to my banana skin of news. Who's that fellow?
Blakey from On the Buses. Oh, I hate you, Hislop.
Ian's got one of his journalists to do some research, because normally we'd never have heard of On the Buses.
So, Bob, a gaffe. The clue is it's not a recent
week.
gaffe.
Oh. You said this week. I couldn't think of any that I've...
Something you announced
There are loads of those.
in the run-up to the general election.
Oh, I told everybody what the general election date was going to be, and
that was bad because...
And upset Gordon Brown.
Right, let's have a look at what you said, and bear in mind at this point, no one in the government, repeat, no one, was allowed to reveal the exact date the election would be held.
We haven't lost our election. We need to fight it. We need to fight it together with, you know, all of our strengths and ability, and put that choice to the British public, because I think they will wake up and rue the day if they wind up with a Conservative government in charge of this country after the 6th of May.
What happens when you make a mistake like that? Do the boys come around, knock on the door in the middle of the night and say, don't do that again? What happens?
I think the message is sent out that you have misbehaved.
How's that done?
I think they brief against you.
Are you suggesting that the Prime Minister had nothing better to do than brief against you when the country was in economic meltdown? I mean, I believe you, obviously. You plotted against him, didn't you? And he didn't like you because you tried to get rid of him.
Oh. How do you know that?
He told us. He's nodding. And going like that. MPs' expenses have been back in the news this week. According to The Telegraph, over 24 MPs who swiftly repaid questionable expenses quietly applied for a refund once the furore had died down. They included Cheryl Gillan, the Welsh Secretary, who went to the trouble of asking to be reimbursed once again for a £4.47 bill for dog food. 3 tins of food her dog ate. Let's remind ourselves of the greedy bitch. And Bob, you have a very big sofa, haven't you?
I do.
Yeah. In the original expenses scandal, Bob claimed for removing a wall between his sitting room and the study of his second home. When he was challenged by the Fees Office for trying to claim for over £2,000 for a Roma corner sofa, he wrote to them saying, "Can I say that due to the size and layout of the room, a normal 3-piece suite will not fit? This corner group fits perfectly and maximises the space." Just a reminder, that's the space created by knocking the wall down between the sitting room and the study, which Bob tried to make us pay for.
You're assuming it was the same room.
You still got the sofa?
Yes, I have.
You have. Is it comfy?
Very nice.
Good. Finally, how have state politicians in Oregon managed to make local politics less boring?
Sharing the lyrics.
That's absolutely right, yes. They have been inserting lines from a Rick Astley hit from the 1980s into their speeches. Word by word, phrase by phrase. The hit is Never Gonna Give You Up. Let's have a look.
I just want to tell you how I'm feeling.
Make sure you understand.
I'm never going to give you up.
I'll never let you down.
We're not going to run around and desert you.
We've known each other for so long. Your heart's been aching.
But you're too shy to say it.
Side we both know.
What's been going on?
We know the game and we're going to play it.
If you ask me
how I'm feeling about this, don't tell me you're too blind to see.
Never going to give. We're never going to let you down.
We're not going to run around and desert you. Never going to
make you cry. Never going to say goodbye.
I won't tell a lie.
And hurt you.
Ooh.
Yes, this is the news that politics can be a little boring. So boring, in fact, that a student yawned so hard in a politics lesson she dislocated her jaw. The student was immediately taken to hospital where her condition was described as hilarious. This week, Gillian Duffy, the pensioner who famously confronted Gordon Brown, ambushed Lib Dem leader Nick Clegg. At first, nobody knew who it was, but fortunately for Gillian, Nick Clegg was wearing a name badge. It's been a remarkable rise for Gillian Duffy. Last year, she confronted Gordon Brown. This week, she harangued Nick Clegg. And next week, she's off to Tripoli for a few stern words with Colonel Gaddafi. Last year, Bob Ainsworth let slip to a journalist that the election would be on May the 6th. Bob's cause wasn't helped when a journalist sneaked a look at his diary and saw May the 7th. Pack up office, book holiday. So, at the end of that round, it's 2 points each. And so to round 2, and the fun continues with the picture spin quiz. Fingers on buzzers, teams.
It's Yuri Gagarin.
It is.
It's 50 years since he was the first man in space. That's topical news. It's very exciting, because it's 50 years since he was the first man in space.
Who was that?
And a lot of people are saying, hey, 50 years since Yuri Gagarin went up into space. That's a long time. That's 50 years.
I forgot to get my present. 50 years? How long has it been?
50 years. Since he went up.
What's his name?
Yuri Gagarin.
Yes, it's the 50th anniversary of Yuri Gagarin becoming the first man in space. What was Gagarin's main concern just minutes before takeoff?
That he was going to die a horrible death in a blaze of meteorites. Like the poor dog that was sent up before him that they now admit died, Lorca or Looker or something like that. Through sheer stress, not knowing what was happening. And, you know, so they never said it died because Russia didn't want to be the first nation to fire a dead dog into outer space. He was the one that went first, but then Yuri Gagarin went after him.
What did they say happened to the dog?
He saw a meteorite going and he tried to chase it and then he couldn't get into it, and then he's whizzing around Jupiter even as we speak.
What's his dog name?
It began with an L, Lorca or something like. Leica, somebody said. Leica. So it was a dog park camera.
So, his main concern just before takeoff was his food supplies on landing. He said the main thing is there is sausage. Presumably left by the dog, who managed to eat them.
The planned tribute dinner that never happened.
Yeah. It was obviously, as you said, a pretty dangerous thing to do. Yeah. How did he reassure his wife?
I'm just going down the shops to get a packet of fags.
I'll be back with the sausages.
Yeah. He wrote to her, I trust the hardware completely, it will not fail, in a letter to be delivered to her if he died. What did Gagarin say as the rockets were igniting, and which has become his catchphrase?
Can you smell a dead dog in here? I'll open the window. Oh, that's a mistake.
Did he say, to infinity and beyond?
In a Russian accent?
That would have been much cooler. He actually said, Poyechali, which means, off we go. Hooray! Why was Yuri chosen for the gig in the first place?
He hadn't heard about the dog.
It was because he was the only member of the cosmonaut squad who was polite enough to take his shoes off before he got into a model of the space capsule. This impressed the people behind the Soviet space program, Kim and Aggie. What worrying observation was made about Gagarin's abilities whilst at pilot school?
He's so drunk he can't stand up.
Did he fail his test first time?
Making him, therefore, a better...
Well, you never have a feeling of pilot's test, do you?
Not their first launch into space.
Oh, I got to 30,000 feet, it was going well, then I stalled. Do you have a pilot's test? Surely
when I hit the dashboard, re-enter.
Who are we talking about now? Enough of your Hollywood stories,
we don't need to go into that. Yes. You stay where you are, Gordon.
Gordon Invisible is doing better than he ever did Visible. There's a sort of warmth to the invisible presence of Gordon Brown.
A good lad, I tell you. Very good lad. Cold hands, but a good lad. Apparently, Yuri Gagarin showed promise in everything except landing. Gagarin was fated as a hero and received gifts from around the world. What sort of thing did he get?
Do I have a scruffy-looking dog collar and lead? Which he didn't understand the significance of?
Well, the answer is he got lots of plaques and medals and keys, and according to the New York Times, a sombrero from the President of Mexico and giant salad tongs from who knows where. A master of understatement, how did he describe the feeling of weightlessness during the trip?
It was... I felt as if I had no weight in my body.
That would have been more poetic. He said, it feels nice. For those of you who aren't satisfied by this notion of weightlessness, we can see the effects of it quite nicely here with the crew of the International Space Station. I don't know whether to concentrate on the lady's hair or the man in the middle of the back row.
Probably have simpler medical histories, and it's a little easier to study just that bone loss. And so we're doing different things, like I myself, for example, am taking some drugs that prevent osteoporosis, trying to understand how they interact with the body.
She must be related to me. If you wanted to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the first man in space, how would you go about it?
Find a dead dog and chuck it over somebody's fence.
You could take magic mushrooms and try and imagine the feeling.
I'm surprised none of you went for the rather obvious Space-Earth flute duet with Ian Anderson out of Jethro Tull. Ian was in the Russian city of Perm, whilst Colonel Catherine Coleman was on the International Space Station. Shall we have a look? You'll recognise her from the hair.
Tonight, Ian Anderson and I would like to honor Yuri Gagarin for his brave journey 50 years ago. And we would like to celebrate the role that humans play in the exploration of our universe, past, present, and future, by sharing some music between Earth and space.
Touching, isn't it?
It is touching. Excuse me a minute. Hold that, Gordon, thank you.
You've just given Gordon Brown your...
Yes, he's grateful as well. Look at him. Looking at me with his big eyes. Oh, love you, Gordon. Yes, this week was the 50th anniversary of the first man in space. Gagarin's capsule was recently bought for £1.8 million. The 7-foot wide metal box with a tiny window was sold by a London estate agent as a cosy studio flat with ensuite bathroom. Fingers on buzzers, teams. Yes, Ian.
This is the happiness movement. They've launched Happiness Awareness Day. Yeah. Everyone's got to be happier, and one of the ways is you get free hugs.
Would you like a hug?
No.
All right.
Where does this happen?
This is in Britain, amazingly.
UK wide?
Yeah, it was launched in London.
Free hugs. Bullshit. They always publish these happiness index and they show you who's where's the happiest places in the UK. And it's always top, the most happy people are people from Kensington, and the bottom are people from Doncaster. No, shock revelations that people who shop in Waitrose and cycle to work are more chuffed than people who have seen a dog's paw print in a human shite. Who's seen that coming?
David Cameron got a bit cross about people not being able to have fun. Let's have a look at one of his attempts to make us all happy.
These pen pushers and busybodies are completely wrong. They have no right to stop you from having fun. And let me put it like this. I'm the Prime Minister, and I'm telling you, if you want to have a street party, you go ahead and have one.
I think he's just trying to get his used to run the street because he's going to make so many of us homeless. I think that's why. He's encouraging street parties. Try and network and find people that can put us up and things, really.
You want to see someone else who's definitely not happy? Here is Peter Hitchens at the recent Press Awards, hearing that Matthew Parris has won Columnist of the Year.
And civilising force, he is Matthew Parris.
This is the launch of Action for Happiness, a campaign to boost the net amount of joy in the world. Action for Happiness have come up with a number of ideas for making us smile. Their list includes drink in moderation, eat chocolate, take pleasure in small things. Which is why, when sipping a wine spritzer and nibbling on a Ferrero Rocher, Sally Bercow is the happiest woman on the planet. One of the supporters of the campaign is the Poet Laureate Carol Ann Duffy, who made her own uplifting contribution to the nation's happiness by not writing one of her poems about it. Which means it's the end of this round, and the scores are... Ian and Kevin have 5, and Paul and Bob also have 5.
That's impossible.
Right, time now for the Missing Words round, which this week features as its guest publication The Missing Link, the British Sausage Appreciation Society newsletter. If you're curious about its contents, you don't want to know. And we start with, yes, I gave Ruby £40,000, but what, says Berlusconi.
But what a night.
He said he gave her the money in order that she wouldn't become a prostitute.
Yes, I gave Ruby £40,000, but it was for her spa, says Berlusconi. Berlusconi went on to claim that she might have been a prostitute, so I gave her the money so she might go another way. Although going another way would, of course, cost extra. What was the Czech president spotted doing this week? Kevin?
He stole somebody's pen.
He did indeed.
Have we got a clip?
We do. He stole the ceremonial pen during an official visit to Chile.
Excelencia, Presidente de la República de Chile, señor Sebastián Piñera Echenique.
Muy buenos días. Quiero en primer lugar dar una cordial y cariñosa bienvenida al presidente Klaus y a la delegación de amigos de la República Checa que nos visita. La verdad es que la República Checa ha tenido siempre una gran participación, presencia en nuestro país.
How happy is that guy going to be when Argos open up in the Czech Republic? Is there any comeback to it?
Well, he must have been annoyed they were playing that music while he was doing it. It's a bit of a giveaway. Next, what made easier for women?
Hiding sausages.
Remembering arguments from the past.
The answer is fireman's lift made easier for women. Next, Argentine president joins Terry Wogan, Phil Tufnell and Christine Hamilton. What?
As lover of the great British banger, showing that sausages unite people around the world.
Is almost the right answer. And receives Banger Award for services to sausages. President Christine Fernandez is an appropriate spokeswoman for the sausage, as she is all eyes, teeth and hair. Next up, tipsy toddler, what by mistake?
Crashes a go-kart into a Wendy house.
Tipsy toddler served margarita by mistake. That's the
Oh,
answer.
yes, I remember reading that now.
A 15-month-old in a Detroit restaurant was served a margarita rather than an apple juice his mother had ordered. She realised something was wrong when he told the waiter he was his best mate and was perfectly OK to pedal his car home. Next, dogs can teach us what?
Says Tory Education Secretary.
Dogs can teach us not to leave the Earth's atmosphere when some friendly Russians put you into another thing and say, it'll be all right, off you'll go. Oh, you come back dead.
No, the answer is dogs can teach us how to get out of arguments. This is from a new book about dog behaviour written by Ryan O'Meara, who was previously a consultant on the BBC Three show Dog Borstal, in the days before BBC Three went all trashy. And finally, Poltergeist warned us to what?
Delouse the cat.
Move house is the answer.
Yeah.
This is Emma Kiech, who did a runner after she discovered the words move written in condensation on a window. According to the Star, the ghost also threw a plank of wood into a bin. And to make matters worse, it was the wrong recycling bin, so she got fined as well. So, the final scores are Ian and Kevin have 6, but this week's winners are Paul and Bob with 7.
Oh, well done. Totally.
But before we go, there's just time for the caption competition. Ian and Kevin have this.
Big tall guy and little small guy go on a trip.
Paul and Bob get that.
Paper cup mutates into rabbit.
Tipsy toddler glasses squirrel by mistake. Is that a squirrel?
No, it's a rabbit.
It's a rabbit.
Not a lot of wildlife in Scotland, is there?
On which note, we say thank you to our panellists, Ian Hislop and Kevin Bridges, Paul Merton and Bob Ainsworth. And I leave you with the news that word spreads that food ministries have agreed to a worldwide ban on turtle soup. After touring a factory in Swindon, David Cameron helps Nick Clegg into his seat in the Prime Ministerial car. And finally, theatre news. There's a serious problem with the casting in the Beijing production of the musical Oliver. Good night.
The case of the naked sports star, Nurse Jackie. Here's next.
I think we should admit that Gordon Brown isn't actually here.
No, I think we should get me going, because next week he can appear as a glove puppet.